So exciting.
Isn't it?
Welcome back into another edition of the Kickabout here on the Blue Room. I am your host, Rob Vera, joined by my co-host, Les Roberts. Les, for those who are watching on YouTube, we are witnessing some of Les's finest work. It's not just kind of a generic Blue Room background now. I got a little Kickabout thing up there. It's pretty nice, Les, especially for a Sunday after a night out on the town, buddy. I think that's very considerate of you.
I've been messing about with the backgrounds, and I'm enjoying it. Doing a little bit of design work that I've not done for years. So full disclosure, I didn't actually see the game last night because it was out, but I did listen to post match, and I have watched the highlights. And to coin a cliche, it seems very much a game of two halves, I think.
To say the least, yes. It was. I think we'll get into all of that. We're going to start today by talking the preseason, guys. This will be a Kickabout that is, for those of you who would like us to shut up about other things and just talk football. I mean, I think we're recording at a time where maximum hardcore football talk might be in order, but we'll try not to make it too painful. As painful as the Everton preseason has been so far, last night was or yesterday afternoon over here in the States, it was quite a spectacle. But we'll get to that in just a second. I want to start, Les, though, by just because, and I think everyone understands with all the flurry of activity or seeming activity yesterday, I think it's important to timestamp where we are. So it is just after 9 a.m. Central time here in the United States, here in Oklahoma City, where I am podcasting from. That means it's a little past 3 p.m. On Merseyside. So I just wanted to timestamp that just in case as soon as we hit publish, I expect that something will hit because that's just the way it works. Would have been nice for you'd think that because Patty and I are friends that I'd get some heads up about news early, but that's not really how it works, guys. Believe it or not.
Paddy's ruthless with his information. He keeps his cards close to his chest, man. He's the consummate professional, isn't he? He's.
But I do feel like, relationships are give and take, and it's just Patty's just taking. And what am I getting in return from this?
He could do you a solid once in a while.
Yeah. I mean, I'm an athletic subscriber, Les. I basically pay his salary. So I would like for him to, get me some of this transfer info a little bit earlier, but I digress. We've got so much coming up this week. So Les, just to kind of do a little preview here, we're going to talk about just Everton preseason. We're going to talk about the upcoming week in Chicago, which I'm very, very excited about.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Blue Room content coming your way. And just generally, I also wanted to get your thoughts on we're going to definitely talk transfer stuff, and in particular, and I really look forward to the conversation I'm going to have with Les about this. David Moyes, who is this guy coming out and saying to a live audience where he's speaking for an hour, knowing that the only quote that's going to live out of that experience in New York is that he'd like to sign 9 or 10 players. Who is this David Moyes? Les, I don't know, but maybe, look, here's the thing. The preseason game, the Les said better. It's a preseason match. It's fitness. We played all right in the first half. The second half, Bournemouth scored a really great goal that probably no one was stopping. And then, 2 calamitous goals.
Yeah.
Nathan Patterson with yet just another bit of evidence that he does not seem to be ready for prime time. It just does not seem like it's going to work out here. And then Jake O'Brien with an uncharacteristic mistake. I don't think we saw him make anything close to a mistake like that in any of the time he was actually playing in games that mattered. So look, guys, I can't get too upset about one game. Though, Les, I want to turn to you first to start about the preseason just generally. As was pointed out, if you listened to the post-match yesterday, we certainly have not been very prolific, to say the least, to start this preseason. One goal against Accrington. It was a penalty. Yeah. And look, I think I'm going to preface this, and I want to kick it over to you, Les, by saying that there has been a fair amount of conversation this week in the online universe, the social media, whatever you want to call it, Les, about, are people panicking about transfers?
Yeah.
I've maintained that, look, you don't, just because you express a very, I think, reasonable concern about the fact that it is almost August and we have signed a backup keeper and we signed a striker, great on the striker front, by the way, to sign a nice looking striker to replace Calvert-Lewin, who's left. But like when we, and if you want to count Alcaraz in that mix, hey, I'm glad we got him. But, he was here, for half of last season as well. Look, you had the chairman come out and do, or not, is it the chairman? Is Kinnear the chairman, Les? Is he the
CEO?
CEO, sure. Yeah. One of those C-level types with a C-level name and a title, who came out and said, look, I know the supporter, he says all the logical things, and he's right. Like, I know the supporters would like us to get the business done faster, but we want to get the right players in and not just fast. Yeah. Which sometimes I view that argument, Les, as being one that is used to just shut people up. Like, what do you want us to sign bad players? As if the only choice is, if you sign players in a timely fashion, then you're signing the wrong players. But if you sign them, it takes them a long time. It's because you were thoughtful about it.
Yeah.
And we've seen at Everton over the years that we can sign just as bad of players late as we can early. So all that said, Les, I think that what we're seeing and where some of the concern about the lack of transfer activity has been rooted in the idea that how many summers in a row are we going to do the thing where we don't get the players in until so late that it takes them a while into the regular season to actually gel with the club, gel with the squad. We don't see the benefits of them as early as we'd like. And then we inevitably start the season kind of slow. Yeah. And so I think that it's reasonable. Like, I get all the reasons why we maybe haven't signed players yet. I also would say that you're not a crazy person. You are not panicking if you are frustrated that more hasn't been done. Les, where do you fall on that spectrum so far?
I think for me, I'm not panicking, but I think for me, my biggest concerns are being realised now. The fact that we are getting into August, we've not signed enough players. I think there's what, 14 players out there or something that we can pick from. It's like a Sunday League squad, basically. It's just the absolute bare minimum you can have. And I think that was always the concern going into the season. Ironically, had Kevin Thelwell stayed in position, we'd have kept with that model, we'd probably be in a better place in terms of numbers. I don't know about the quality of the players, but certainly in terms of numbers, I think we'd have more in. To flip that on its head, surely there should have been some sort of handover. So he must have been identifying players last season to come in this summer, obviously with a view to keeping his job before everything changed. Like any job, if you leave a job, you always do a handover for the next person. It feels like that's not been done, because it feels like whoever this new recruitment team is and how much David Moyes is involved in it, I just don't know if they're looking at targets that have been passed on, or they're just going into it sort of, completely afresh and just finding their own players. So I think that is a disappointment. And, you're right. You're not crazy for maybe starting to kick off a little bit about it now, because we've seen it so many times, and the fact that we're now seeing these sorts of worst fears being realised, that we get to this tournament, we've got probably one new outfield player in Barry and a reserve goalie. Barry didn't start. Better got the start. So we'll see what happens on Wednesday. But I think going into this tournament, not betting in like 4 or 5 new players, I think it's just really disappointing. Yeah. And then if you do sort of push that out into the start of the new season, it could be the same old thing again. Like you say, we'll get into late August, start panicking, or maybe not even panicking. Maybe these signings will just will come in then, but it leaves us really short. And I think we've only got 2 games in August, so it might not be as bad as previous seasons.
Yeah.
But I looked at the fixtures and I said it last year, I can see Crystal Palace being our first win again, and that's October 1st. It was the same last year. And if I just look at the fixtures and I think the shape that the team's in, that is a possibility. Because I think Matt nailed it last night as well. because he said the first 11's okay.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a decent first 11. Obviously, we're having trouble scoring, so there's the same old story there.
Yeah.
But you look beyond that, and there's nothing. And Bournemouth showed last night, and they showed us last season, that when you can bring a few subs on late in the game, you can go and win it. And that's not a position we're in, which is a big worry.
Well, and I mean, there's a lot there. I going back to the idea that there are logical reasons why business hasn't been what it should be. I think that's the thing. It's like everyone kind of gets that. Well, a lot of the new decision making and recruitment and administrative staff are, to get the quote right guys, we had to hire guys that maybe couldn't join the club as expeditiously as we would have liked.
Yeah.
So I mean, I get that, but to your point about a handoff, we talked about this a little bit in that. This was months back, I think, Les, when we were talking about Thelwell's departure. I think we talked about how over the years you would see, even with changes in managers or director of football, even from Brands to Thelwell, whatever, you would see these occasionally, like a play. Like I think Dwight McNeil's a great example of someone who I think a previous regime, like Everton, had held long interest across multiple regimes, and then they still signed him. And I even speculated at the time that look, all the work that Thelwell and his staff had done, there's at least some groundwork done there. And so, the answer to the question of, well, then why didn't they kind of pick up that baton and run with it, is maybe that they wanted to start completely from scratch in terms of their evaluation, their processes. They're looking for different types of players. I mean, all those things are somewhat reasonable. Again, I don't believe. I think that the way that this discussion devolves, and this is just the tradition like no other in terms of how our fan base talks about this traditionally, and I don't know how much of this is just the way it's always been, and so this is how we talk about it. But it feels like if I'm someone who says, it would have been better to have a few more signings in. That is not me saying they should have signed 10 guys by now. That is not me saying we should have paid for players that we, overpaid on the odds. The ultimate thing to remember is that all the things that we talk about that we sometimes can't help but frame as unique to Everton about, well, Everton's not in Europe. Everton has money, but not as much money, and blah, blah, blah. Like, you're describing a lot of other clubs too. And yeah. I recognize that it's not like every other club has jumped into the pool yet. But look, I'm amazed every season when these relegation or when the newly promoted clubs jump up, like seeing Sunderland do that early business. And then I will, kind of gets me a little, and then I know that there are reasons, but seeing TFG owned Roma doing a lot of business is, again, they have more of a structure already in place. Again, I know these are not apples to apples comparisons. All that said, I'm not trying to be overly critical of the club. I am saying that it's reasonable to be a little disappointed, given that we were kind of, I don't know if we were sold or we sold ourselves, Les, on this idea that the new ownership, a lot of these contracts coming off the books, and the majority of our PSR troubles being behind us by July 1. And again, I'm not saying, anyone who claims they know exactly what it even means now, is probably lying to you, but we should be in a better position. I think it's okay. It's reasonable to be a little disappointed. And I think we're now seeing that in the form of this yet another preseason where it just all looks a little half-baked. And to Moyes' point, we could have been flying this preseason and then started the season poorly. Like, there's no guarantees, but I think we all have seen this movie so many times, Les, that I think that the frustration of not getting more business done in preseason is one that is both reasonable and not too surprising.
Yeah, I think for me, I just don't want to be let down again. So there's been a couple of times over the past few years where we've done those sort of last gasp staying up thing, and you thought, okay, we'll just get through this one and we'll be fine next time out. And it hasn't happened. It's got sort of progressively worse, if anything, really. So we've just sort of taken hit after hit after hit, and then it finally felt like although, like you say, there are the caveats with the recruitment team bedding in, getting the right people in who may not be able to start until August, September. Although there's that, we did know that there was going to be a big churn of the squad. The people running the club knew that. The people managing the club knew that. Everybody knew that there was going to be a big change. So we had to act to at least fill some gaps in the squad, and we've not done that. So it feels for me like we've sort of come into this summer with a lot of expectation and hope, which I think's fair enough, because it was, like you say, the PSR thing we think is behind us. We should have money to spend. We're moving into the new ground. And it just feels like it could be the same old story again, where it's disappointment. And then, if we do go into that Leeds game with basically the 11 that played at Blackburn, but with Pickford in goal and probably Tarkowski, if that's our starting team against Leeds, there's probably enough to get a result. But then when we go into the next game at home against Brighton, who historically generally batter us at home, they have done the last 2 seasons.
Yeah,
that would be such a letdown to go into that game with the same team, because I think we'd all be on the back foot thinking we're probably not going to get anything out of this, and we don't want that going into that first game. So we need to be ready for that. I think even if we're not ready for Leeds necessarily with new signings in or new signings bedded in, they need to be in the team in the squad by that point. But we need to have more options for that Brighton game, because that's the crunch one. To get battered there will be a massive disappointment, and I think it'll put everyone on the back foot, and we'd all start moaning again, and quite rightly so, I think.
Well, the margins are going to be thin to start the season just because of that betting in period that you pointed out, but also just because there's a lot of I'm going to do this is I feel like I'm stealing a Bill Simmons bit for any of our probably American listeners who listen to the Bill Simmons podcast. So I'm going to do the thing. I'm not saying it's a thing, but I'm just saying to watch for it. But yesterday was I think the thing that I took away from yesterday, Les, to your point about what's it going to look like for Leeds to start the season or Brighton at home, is something to watch is that center half position right now, because I find it odd that Jared Branthwaite didn't travel. Now, I don't mean that. I mean, he signed his Can you imagine if he hadn't traveled and had not signed that deal? By the way, Les, we would all be just conspiracy theory going crazy. But what I mean by that is that they framed it as this sort of little minor precautionary injury. Like, they were very careful with that. I just thought it was odd because Tarkowski also is coming back from a major injury and he traveled. Now, that may simply be that, he is close to returning. Tarkowski, who attended that event in New York with David Moyes for the Men in Blazers podcast, is maybe one of those guys that's sort of an out front figure for the club. So he comes up like that. That could just be what it is. But, I think what I would say is that, look, I know we're kind of on different sides of the whole Michael Keane thing, but when you say that fourth choice center half doesn't matter, well, it doesn't matter as long as your starting guys are fit. And I've said it before. I like Tarkowski overall. He's been really solid. I think we've sort of memory hold the portions of last season where Tarkowski looked flat out bad for a while because he finished so strong, and then we're just like, everything's fine. Look, I like Tarkowski, okay, but he is of a certain age and coming back from a pretty significant injury. And
particularly when he's a player who's not been injured. So he's never had a long layoff. So,
but that's how it starts. That's the thing, Les, is when you are an Iron Man like he has been, you put a ton of miles on the clock, on the odometer, right? And so this is going to be the first big test of post 30 something James Tarkowski coming back from a major injury. The club have to be careful because of his outsized importance. I think in the squad with Branthwaite, and that unit is so important. I think my concern is that, to your point, the starting 11 could get by with fine margins early in the season, but only if we're talking Tarkowski and Branthwaite, or even Tarkowski and O'Brien, I'd feel comfortable with. But if we're talking Keenan O'Brien, it starts to get dicey because back to the transfer point. Who's the right back if Jake O'Brien is playing at center half? The fact that we're even asking the question of, man, we got, because Jake O'Brien needs to play right back. Like, the fact that we're still talking about Jake O'Brien being a right back is probably the source of my greatest kind of disappointment with the transfer window so far. And we're going to get on to Adam Asnow and the fact that we may be bringing a really exciting young left back. But in terms of the start of the season, Les, your theory works, but it only works if we at least have our starting defensive, or starting center halves, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I'm gonna go even more sort of pessimistic than that, I think. So that sort of came to me after I think it was the Blackburn game. I think it did when I did Blue Monday with Dave and Roger. We were talking about the fact that one injury in that defence has a massive domino effect.
Right.
Because there's no right back to speak of because Nathan Patterson looks way off it. Then you've got Jake O'Brien can play there. Okay, so then you play Jake O'Brien there. So then you've got 3 centre-backs for 2 positions. You've got 2 of those centre-backs who are now injured, which leaves you with Michael Keane. So
was Michael Keane injured yesterday? He must have had a niggle or something if they're keeping him out of that squad, because that weird formation yesterday.
Strange setup, wasn't it?
Yeah, for a half.
But for me, I mean, yeah, Michael Keane coming in and playing an extended period of games could be an issue because it was last season.
Mm-hmm.
But then we also had the issue that Tarkowski never had a pre-season last season. I think he got injured against Preston and didn't come back till the season had started. So that he was playing catch up for a lot of
the first game of the season last season. I can't remember.
I don't know, but when he came in, he didn't have any pre-season, and when he came in, he looked rusty, and it took him months to get up to speed. And I think that's why he had a decent finish to the season, because he was finally at his level.
Yeah.
You've also got Jared Branthwaite potentially missing pre-season again, which would be another issue. So if we've got these defenders, even if they're fit for the start of the season, if we've got our best defenders haven't had no pre-season, that's an issue because they come in. And we've seen last season, Jared Branthwaite didn't start the season particularly well. No one did because we were conceding goals, 3 goals a game on average. So it's a massive worry for me. Obviously, if we get this guy from Bayern Munich in as left back, that's a plus point. But it's not the most pressing matter unless he can play right back as well. Because
well, but that's the, I think we talked about this before, Les. When we were talking about our transfer expectations a couple months back, we talked about this idea. I brought up the idea that when it came to whatever our budget was, that I could live with, because I think we were also talking about this with the idea that they might re-sign Michael Keane. And if you're going to look at the logic of, do you just, to fill squad places, do you sign some unspectacular players? Or I think that was part of the discussion of do you just bring in Kufal from West Ham? Moyes knows him. He can play right back. He's not great, but he's a viable option. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the idea was, I'm okay with kind of unspectacular additions in some places if it would allow us to then spend good money on some potential special difference making type players, right? So think the Fofana thing comes to mind. That's the idea. Is I think that's the problem, though, to your point, Les, is that we haven't even done the squad filling part of the equation. Now that does not in any way take away, and we'll get into Adam. Is it as now or as new? It's NOU. I'm going to call him as now until someone.
As now, yeah.
It sounds European-ish and continental and classy enough, but I that does not take away from, to me, I think left back is actually a under the radar need, frankly, because I think we've just been getting by with. I think that Mikolenko is a bang average, just Premier League replacement level left back, which is not a bad thing. It's fine, but I think as now, based on what you read about him, I mean, there's a real it's clear that Moyes has targeted someone who is offensively and attacking wise got some real upside, which I love. Bring left back FC, bring it back. I'm excited about that. But to the point that you made, though, Les, it becomes an issue when you're like, well, we're signing this left back who we should be signing. We should be signing players regardless of position if they are good quality players for the club. However, it's much easier to say, take the best player and figure it out when you don't have massive gaping squad holes in places that are compromising other positions that you thought were strengths, like center half, right?
Yeah.
So that's where we're at right now. And I think that's why, and kind of transitioning into yesterday, yesterday was a fun day online, Les, because I joked with you that Transfer Rob, I think, is back from the dead after all these years, just getting into the soapy drama and the media shenanigans of it all, the agent mischief, the potential for gazumphing, all of it. I think yesterday was top notch. But all that excitement that any of us are feeling about, adding some potential exciting quality players is sort of undercut by what we've been talking about here, which is I feel like there's got to be a few buttons that they're ready to push, but they're waiting to see if can we get these other things done first, knowing I can go back for, like a couple of ex West Ham players that I want to sign, or I can go back for, some free agent. I just don't want this to be left so late that that this window becomes something of a not a failure, because I expect them to bring players in, but a disappointment, given that while we didn't expect us to become a Champions League team this year, I think we all thought if we sign the right players this summer, we can start to see the arrow pointed up, and maybe we're talking about a top 10 finish, which I think is a reasonable thing if we were to kick on, given what we've seen from sides like Forest and Villa over the last few seasons.
Yeah, I think that game yesterday sort of put into perspective how tough that top 10 could be to break.
Yeah, Bournemouth, man, for a ninth place side, it's just amazing the attacking quality you're seeing at that level of the league now. It really
is. Exactly. Like I said, I didn't see the game, but I think the way the subs went, did they bring their better players on towards the end?
Gosh,
I think that's what Matt and Dave said yesterday.
Yeah, well, they brought on some exciting. I mean, it seemed like they played some of their good players to start, and early in the second half, you saw some of them, perform well. Honestly, I can't remember the exact flow, because once we were down 3-0, I'll be honest, I turned it off and I was just like, I'll see the rest of this later. But I think part of what Matt and Dave were talking about was just the fact that they could bring on, as part of what a normal preseason ought to look like, waves of players to get playing time, to develop. We're behind on these things, and it's irking us.
And that's it, and when we're so far behind a team like Bournemouth, it's obviously going to be disappointing. I know we've got no divine right to be above them in the league, but hopefully, it seems a really weird thing to say.
Yes, we do.
We do. Hopefully, we'll get to a level where the club it's seemingly as well run as they are, and we just function as a normal football club. Because again, that's one thing we've not done for that's part of a decade now. We have not been a functioning football club. How we've got by and stayed up is anyone's guess, really. It's
Jordan Pickford. I still maintain is the main. If you want to look for the reason, it's probably Pickford. But
pretty much is, isn't it? But when we can't bring on the sort of wealth of players and the quality of players that Bournemouth can, there's something seriously wrong. And I've seen a couple of suggestions that Moyes didn't make any substitutions until the 75th minute, and he only made 3 then. Because he's sending a message to the board, which would back up the sort of the thing that he said, like you say in the Men in Blazers interview, where he was quite bullish and saying, I want 9 players in.
9 to 10. 9 to 10. I almost fell out of my chair when I heard that.
That's a massive, massive statement. So it kind of does back up that thinking, but I think that's obvious to him, to us, to anyone running the club. It's obvious to everyone we need the players in. So I think if he was to try and make a statement doing that, it's a bit foolish. You may as well use the players that you've used in earlier pre-season. So some of the young kids who've got to run out against Accrington and Blackburn, you might as well bring them on, if only to give players a rest before Wednesday. Because, they were playing in pretty intense heat there. It was the first sort of big game of pre-season. I think to just make 3 subs was a massive misstep. And I think if it was to make a point, it was pretty foolish and petty for me.
Yeah. Well, but you can afford to do that in preseason when the games don't count, Liz. You
Well,
know what I
I
mean?
suppose so, yeah. But yeah, and you know, you look at the uncharacteristic mistake from Jake O'Brien.
Yeah.
Fatigue plays a part in that, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? If he played 75 minutes, he just made one little lapse, they score off it, heads go down. Suddenly, it's a bit of a rout.
Well, and he's barely played center half in the last year plus.
Well, yeah,
You know,
there's,
I mean,
there's that as well, isn't there? Yeah.
it's look, it's the fact that it was a hot New Jersey day that they were playing in, and like there's a look I don't dig too deep into the whys of a bad preseason performance. I think it's more the overarching picture of preseason as a whole for Everton that is more concerning to me than one result here or there.
Yeah.
I just, look, I think that, you know, and I want to move on and talk just a little bit about these names that we've been linked to. But I think I'll kind of cap off the preseason thing by saying, you have to, I think that there's a sense, and I do share this. There's a sense that there's a lot of things that can go right, and that it seems like from a business acumen standpoint that they're doing the right things, they're putting the right people in place, and that, you know, there's going to be some patience required. I understand all that. It is okay to still be disappointed in not having a little more activity. And I think it's also reasonable, and I've said this a lot, I think everyone, especially in the incentivization, Les, if you will, of social media, to have a definitive opinion about what will happen. And my advice, I would just say, like, maybe we don't need to have such definitive opinions all the time. Like, I'm referring specifically to the people who say, hey, TFG are going to knock this out of the park. They're going to get this all right. They're going to bring in the players. You people need to calm down and whatever. And they might. I think they will. I hope they will. But I don't really get the rush to like pronounce and proclaim that TFG, who literally has zero record of running Everton, let them actually show us. Then next summer, when it's a little slow, we can say, guys, took them a little while to get started last summer, but they came through, right? And I'm still pretty bullish, Les, on that, the idea of it happening. But there's no need to speak with such certainty. And I think I think a lot of that comes from the fact that everyone, to the point you and I have talked about all the time, wanting to turn the page from Everton, that, and how, let's be real, as much as we will miss Goodison, as much as what this new stadium represents as an opportunity for us to kind of get a fresh start in terms of how we think about Everton. I think people are clinging to that so much that they want to say, no, hey, shut up, TFG, you're going to knock this out, and this is all going to be fine. You people are freaking out. I mean, look, I hope that's all true. I also think that no one should be freaking out. And I also think that if you're concerned, that your concern is not necessarily freaking out, and that it's okay to be concerned. And yesterday was just another bit of evidence that you're not totally off base if you're looking at this squad and saying, it would have been nice to have a few more players in here. That's all.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely.
Go ahead, Les. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say, I completely agree. You know, no one ever earns the right to have blind faith in them. So, you know, even the best run club in the world, the fans should never have just blind faith in the people running it, because things can quickly go wrong. So, yeah, you know, they've got to earn the right for us to give them the benefit of the doubt. And I think so far they've not done that. But, you know, they've been in, 6 months or something like that, 8 months maybe. It's going to take time. It's just, I think we're just so sick of being kicked in the nuts every time, and it's a bit like, we just don't want that to happen again, please. Let's just be normal.
Let's just be normal. Oh yeah, start by being normal and signing a right back or a right-sided player. I would love that. Okay, so yesterday, as we alluded to before, was to me the first kind of fun day on Everton Twitter in regards to transfers this summer, and I think I mean that, Les, from the standpoint that part of the frustration is all the serious stuff we just talked about. But let's be real. I think that there is like a part of ourselves that we don't like, as Jack Nicholson said in A Few Good Men, that we don't like to talk about at parties, that really enjoys the dopamine rush of seeing like a wild Fab Romano tweet about something advanced with us happening,
Yeah.
which I commented yesterday is now a very exhilarating or kind of an excitable feeling of dread when he does it first, because when he does it first, I used to think that meant something, and now it's the thing to understand about Fabrizio Romano, guys, and this is not even a criticism. This is just a reality of his business model. Is that the reason he gets his information is because of how heavily tied and the relationships he's built to all of these agents, right? Which means that his batting average in terms of saying something's going to happen is going to be pretty good overall, but there's a fair amount built in there for agent mischief, if you will.
Yeah.
He knows he's not a dummy. He knows that he is a usable tool, a convenient fool, if you will, at times to be used to pressure other clubs or to pressure, to elicit a reaction, to get like he gets all that. I say all of that to say that the excitement yesterday started with, with the news about the Adam Asnow deal with Bayern being close. Patty had reported the interest several days back, I believe, and you just sort of like you nodded, and that's the thing. Look, all of my biases aside, Patty has really begun. Patty Boyland, our own Patty Boyland, our Patty, if you will. Of the Athletic is I can just say it, like he has now become one of those A-level, like, he's not going to just throw stuff out there. He says it when he knows it, and it's frustrating because you have to wait sometimes, but you admire someone who you can kind of take his information to the bank. So he'd reported about Adam Nasnow. I thought that, I think people were like, all right, something's getting going. It's a 19-year-old left back. Oh, really would love it if it was a right back, but okay, this kid, you start to learn a little bit more about the kid. You realize that this is that profile player we talk about all the time, like the Livermento thing, where it's like, wouldn't it be great to sign the guy who's up and coming for like less than 10 million versus waiting till he's worth 25 or 30. And so hopefully he fits into this. He's young, but a lot of talent. I think that his strengths are overall, I think he's pretty well-rounded overall, but I think that it's his attacking prowess that I think people are kind of excited about. Again, a left back, I don't really worry about Moyes being able to develop a left back. So all that said, that's the deal that seems a little further down. But the one that got everyone horny for Everton Twitter and horny for transfers yesterday was the news that Everton had. It started with Romano tweeting that we were in advanced discussions with with Leon. It's Leon, right? He plays for Leon for Malik Fofana. Now, why this got everyone excited? And again, we joked less before we hit record that that you're alive with Everton summer transfer Twitter when you become emotionally attached to someone you had probably never heard of or seen just minutes before. That is how you're alive. And I've missed that feeling over the last few years. But look, Fofana is, it doesn't take long. He is that short yet dynamic winger that is going to take on fullbacks. He's going to make plays. He can pass. He can shoot. He is only 20 years old. He is someone that I look at, and he is a right-footed player who plays predominantly on the left side. So again, boy, we love that left side. Again, though, and I think I said something akin to this about Richarlison years ago, Les. Like, I don't really care too much about positions if a player's right-footed. Like, there's probably a little versatility there, whatever. Look, sign you have enough good attacking players, figure it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if he's good enough and he's a difference maker and he is a statement of intent signing, given the fact that he has had a lot of, bigger European sides, or when I say European sides that are playing in Europe next season. And my contention is that while this feels very Luis Diaz to me in terms of just waiting on the other
that was
shoe
my
to drop,
first thought.
which broke my heart, by the way. I really, really wanted him back then. My opinion, Les, and I want to know where you fall on this, because I'm still kind of with guys like Dave in that Dave and I disagree on the wisdom of making the move. I think Dave's like, like this isn't really that reasonable to go after this guy yet. I'm of the opinion you go after him because you are never going to get a yes to questions you don't ask. You got to take your shot. And I do think that Everton need to, find ways to sell their value proposition, even if they're not in Europe, to be able to say to a player, look, you're 20. Is the goal to just get to a Champions League side and sit on the bench and, toil in obscurity? And then like the way that Chelsea just throw dozens of players on the pile. And then what's your fate then? You might play for them, or you might just get sent out on loan in a year. I do think that Everton have to find a way to say, hey, come here for a couple of years. You can bring us forward and put yourself in a position to get a real big money move somewhere, even better, where you're going to play. Like, we got a new stadium, a great fan base. You're playing in the Premier League. You're on TV. All these, like all those things. I believe I could sell that. But right now, I do think that we are certainly in an era where players, regardless of age, Les, and I'd love your thoughts on this, they just seem to want to press the button to get to a Champions League side as quickly as possible, regardless of who's in front of them, regardless of their age, whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's going to take Everton sort of painting the picture for a young player like a Fofana, and to persuade him to think outside of that kind of usual box, to say, hey, this is a great opportunity. We don't have Europe this season, but we're going to get there. We're spending, we're ambitious. So whether this works out or not, Les, I'm happy we made the move. How do you feel? Like, one, what do you know about Fofana? And two, what do you think about just generally the wisdom of the move, or just kind of that mindset of Everton going after it?
I know absolutely nothing about him other than we have got the potential to be messed about by another Belgian player, which is fun. It's always fun.
It is always the Belgian, isn't it?
Yeah, it's always the Belgians. But yeah, I think, like you say, his profile is exactly the sort of player we should be going after. Ideally, we go in for this player when he's at Ghent, not when he's at Lyon. I think that's the mistake we're making.
Yeah.
So we take him from that obscurity, and then we put him on that platform where then he can move on to Champions League. And there
some
is
of those players Asnow is the one like that, right?
Yeah,
is against sort of thing. Like, but they can't all be like that. But I hear your point. You're absolutely right. Like, I'd love to have identified him earlier, but we also need guys that can come in and score goals and create offense as soon as possible.
And I think from the players' sort of point of view, you do want to get to that destination as quickly as possible, don't you? So if you think you're good enough and you've got everyone telling you you're good enough, that can take some of the rationality out of your decision, because you can think, do you know what? I can do this. I can go to Chelsea. I can get in that squad. And that's where that sort of snowballs. And that's where suddenly, where Everton may have been able to sell them a vision of saying, look, we're in a great position here. We're mid-table. We're looking to push up. We're looking up the league. We've got this new ground. Everything's exciting around this club right now.
And you'll play minutes. That's the minutes have got to be the biggest part of that, right?
Yeah. But if you're a player of that sort of age and profile, who's, probably very, very confident in his own ability, that's where he can look at that and think, well, okay, yeah, but I can go and do that somewhere else. I can go and do that at a Champions League club. Now, we might not be able to, but in his head, he's thinking, yeah, I've got the ability to do that. So and also the agent, and he will probably get more money moving to that club.
Right.
So then all that feeds into the fact that suddenly we're out of the running. And I think it was quite funny yesterday. So I think I saw it mid-afternoon. Within about half an hour, we were already out of the running. And then I've checked again this morning and we're back in pole position. So it's no one knows, do they? It's it's that run around of everything.
Yeah.
But he is, he would be the perfect profile of player if we could get those two players in. Now I know, as now is a left back, and it's not maybe not a priority position where right back is. They're two really interesting, exciting signings that would change the complexion of what we've just been talking about now. If we sign these today, I might go into Blue Monday tomorrow, and Roger might even be happy. You never know. You know what I mean? We might be
Roger is my man, by the way. Roger
Roger's
gets
ace.
it.
I love him.
He's somehow, but he makes me look way like he definitely makes me look way more glasses half full. But I love him. I love him so much.
Yeah, the times Roger hasn't even got a glass sometimes. So but yeah, they are the players, and to your point before, I agree with you that we need to ask the question. We need to be putting our name next to these sorts of transfers, because if you let's compare us to Bournemouth again.
Yeah.
If Bournemouth were in these news stories going after Fofana instead of Everton, we'd all be like, well, why aren't we going after him?
Exactly.
That's the sort of player we should be in for.
Amen,
So,
Liz. Amen.
yeah, we've got to be in that conversation, and we've got to show that ambition. And there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, he might not sign for us, but it doesn't feel like, over the years, we've had really sort of hollow gesture transfers put in, haven't we? Like, the Alan Shearer for 12 million when he'd already gone for 15 million was the obvious one in the 90s. This doesn't feel like that. These do feel like we are genuinely saying to this player, look, come and be part of this. And we've got the money to spend on you. We want to spend the money on you. This isn't an empty gesture from Everton.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, that we can see they're going after the right profile of player. And like we said at the start, it's frustrating that we've sort of not done this earlier, maybe, or we've not plugged those gaps. Because, like you say, if maybe we will end up with Kufal at right back, we should have done that weeks ago. And it would have been uninspiring. People would have been like, oh, where we go. Moyes is going back to West Ham, getting what he knows. But that's a gap plugged.
Yeah.
And it's one less thing to worry about.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way to do it. So it's so up in the air. But I think we've got to be, if these players are going, players of this profile, we've got to, put our name in if we can. And, it looks like we're in a relatively good position at the minute.
Well, here's the thing. In terms of Fofana, like I had heard of him, and obviously in the way in which certain players will come across my algorithm of a timeline because they are, they're playing, they're creating highlights, or they're linked to bigger, to big clubs, and so stuff just works its way across your timeline. The thing that stands out most about me is that he is someone who can both chance create and finish, which, again, those players become exponentially more expensive as time goes on. And so the only question is, you can look at a fee for him right now and say, that's a lot of money. And I would agree with you. But I would also say that that is never going, that price isn't going down the more you wait. It just isn't. And so now, granted, you negotiate, but my point being is that if you wait for this player a year from now, add another 10 to 15, or he's just completely out of reach, right? And so the point of going after it, like, this is what I would say too, is for anyone saying, well, look at Fofana and Everton have bid for him, but there's going to be two or three other Champions League or European qualifying teams that are going to bid for him, and so Everton only have like a 30% chance. So what's the point? And I would say things that only have a 30% chance of happening or a 25% chance of happening happen all the fucking time. That's what I would say. Because when you think about, we talked about dominoes as it relates to like a center half being injured and that happening. Well, think about the marketplace, guys. It only takes a player moving to a club or changing his mind and going somewhere else or staying somewhere to have a domino effect to where Fofana is going to, at some point, he may wait and say, I want to give this another week or so and see if other options begin to emerge. And if they don't, I've got this great offer from Everton, and he takes it. This idea that playing at Everton had to be Fofana's number one objective and his that he had to be wearing Everton royal blue pajamas as a kid. Who cares? Like, this is a business. And I don't really care, like, if we were his number one, like, they're all going to, if they sign, like, don't worry about what you think the player cares about. The only thing you should care about is, does he sign on the bottom line, regardless of how it comes about? He's still going to get on the day that we sign him and say, I have been excited about Everton for a while. They're a big club who want to do it. Like, there's a script that they give all of them. You've never spoken English before. Here's your first lesson. You're going to say, Seamus Coleman has written this really nice thing about Everton and what it means to be a blue. And you're going to read this, and that's fine. That's my point, is you miss to use the cliche here, it's somewhat basketball related. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Or actually, I think that may have originated in hockey with Wayne Gretzky or something like that. Like, why do you score so much? Well, I shoot a lot, It's just like, you gotta be able to, you gotta do that. So look, he is a player of the right age and profile, who, to me, if you're looking at it from a skill and development perspective, all of the outcomes seem, outside of injury, seem pretty good. Because to me, if he comes here and he plays well, that's a good problem for us to have, because it means we're probably doing better. And he is the kind of asset at age 20 who in 3 years is going to be 23 and still be a gigantic asset that you hopefully have grown in the way that we've grown Branthwaite as an asset, or the way that we've, even Pickford is more of an asset than he was when we initially signed him. So, like, that's the mindset, is you got to think of him in those terms. You got to take your shots, and maybe we don't sign him. Maybe we are outside, like, we are underdogs to sign him, but you still go for it. And I'm glad we're going for it.
Yeah, and also, if this does come off, that's the top end of the pitch sorted then. So we've got Alcaraz.
Yeah, what do you do on the right side then, Les? I was curious about that, because it seems like, is Njai going to play more of a number 10 role? And then what does that mean for Alcaraz? I'm very confused by that.
I think what you want out of that sort of front three behind the striker is, it's great if they're fluid and they can all swap positions. Mm-hmm. And you kind of think, if he's right-footed, he prefers to play on the left, because obviously maybe he wants to cut inside and shoot, but he can definitely play on the right. If you're right-footed, you can play right wing.
Sure. Yeah.
If you're a winger. So I think there could be some fluidity there, where they just swap mid-game, because Ndai can play on the right. I think he plays there for Senegal, doesn't he? So he can play on the right. Alcaraz, he's not great out there, but he can play right or left. He's better central. Either of them can play central, so you get a lot of fluidity that keeps the opposition defense guessing then. Because if Ndai's having a terrible time out on the left, he can maybe go and attack the left back and play on the right. But I just think, from a collective unit of front players, then we'd have Fofana, who's 20, Alcaraz is 22, I think Ndai's 25, Beto 28, Barry 22. That's a really good collection of sort of age, profile, experience that would make for a really good front unit.
But if Paul Joyce is to be believed, Les, I thought that was an interesting detail when he posted the story about that yesterday. And he mentioned that Fofana was one of 2 wingers that Everton want to bring in. Now, I don't know if there's an identified target, but it does sound like, and I would assume it would have to be someone on the right side. But to your point, even if it was just Fofana, you start to at least can see the options, even if it's a little overly slanted to maybe a left-sided prowess. There's at least enough dynamism in there that you've got the start of something promising. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
And you've got McNeil, who he doesn't look like he fits anywhere at the minute. He's going through one of those phases where he looks sort of really laconic. I thought he got into a few good positions yesterday, but his final ball was dreadful, which is quite unusual for him.
I don't worry about. Do you really worry about McNeil too much?
No.
Or is it just? I mean, my worry about him is just I don't want to lose him for months like we did last season. I mean, I think we really felt that, but I don't know. I do wonder if they sign. Let's say they bring in 2 new wingers, and then you've got Alcaraz and you've got Njai. And those 2 wingers, whoever they are. And then, like, does McNeil at some point, to your point, does he become potentially the odd man out? And by the way, if he does, that, I think McNeil is someone who we would be able to sell for more than we bought him for, because we only bought him for like 10 million, I think.
Yeah, I would imagine. But again, even if he does stick around and we do just get the one winger in, he's another different option then. So that there are options where, in the past, when we've had any sort of a squad to choose from, the replacements have been very like for like, haven't they?
Yeah.
Beto for Calvert-Lewin, Calvert-Lewin for Beto, big fella up front. That was it.
Yeah.
Now Barry looks a little bit different. He looks like he's got a lot more pace about him, even though he is a massive guy as well.
Yeah.
So
he's got a bit of skill too. Like there's
that's what I
there's
mean.
there's a lot to like about that kid.
Yeah.
And I think there's some rough edges there, but even coming on yesterday, his first touch is pretty interesting too. Like I don't know. I'm excited to see more of him, I guess.
Yeah, me too. But he's a different option to Beto, isn't he? So there's two front men who offer you different things.
Yes.
And again, McNeil is different to Ndai, who's different to Fofana, who's different to Alcaraz. There's a lot of different options in that mix up front, which, the one thing the squad has missed is goals, isn't it? And you kind of think if you've got that good mix of players up front, goals have got to come, surely.
Yeah. What do you make of the midfield, Les? I was god awful. Like Patty joked, it was real bold of Everton to not play a midfield in the second half yesterday, and you certainly saw that in the goals that were scored, and just the general flow of the second half. But man, we've had these kind of strange links to Douglas Luiz that I don't think really are anything necessarily.
Yeah.
It feels very Italian journalists getting up to mischief kind of stuff. And then there's, are we still kind of entertaining this idea that we're going to get, oh my God, from City? Why am I blanking on his name?
Oh, McAtee, is it? What's his name?
No, not McAtee. No. The older. Why am I? God Almighty.
Oh, Grealish.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I had a moment. It's Sunday morning here, guys. I'm still waking up a little bit, but like the midfield is. I think
threadbare is the word.
It's very underwhelming, guy. Like, here's the deal: the re-signing Gay by the minute just looks like the absolute minimum thing we had to do. I cannot even imagine what we're talking about right now if Gay had moved on, if Ghana had moved on. But here's the thing: like, tell me I'm wrong, Les. You are a pioneer of the let's move this random midfielder to a fullback position guy, and I salute you for that. I still think Tom Davis. If Les Roberts had been Tom Davis's manager, guys, we'd be talking about a statue at Bramley Moore for that guy.
Oh, it would have been totally different
playing fullback. But look, James Garner is just kind of whatever, like, hey, loved that free kick goal in a preseason game at an empty stadium in a practice game that I saw this week. That was awesome. I'd love for him to score a meaningful goal in a game that actually counts. But the thing with Garner, he's not bad, but he's just sort of a guy. And I always feel like, and someone will tell me that I'm totally insane, but every time that they put him in some kind of wing back or right back position, I always feel like I notice him more in a more positive way. Again, maybe he's not a right back, whatever. But I'm looking at that midfield. It's Gay, it's Ghana, it's Irabunum, it's Garner, it's
this Harrison Armstrong, who's on
Harrison Armstrong. Well, and I want to return to him in a second. Harrison Armstrong, Alcaraz, I suppose, if you're kind of like he's sort of the tip of that spear up there.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, I don't know what position you put him in, but I want Alcaraz on the pitch for us because I think he makes things happen. I've just seen enough of him to think that guy is gonna. I just love. I've got an early crush on him, and yes, the Latin American player, Les. Of course, I'm in the bag for those guys, but we saw plenty of promise from him. But the point being that it all feels very undercooked. It also feels that one injury. Can you imagine what happens if Ghana gets injured?
Yeah.
I mean, we take for granted that he's just going to be out there. And it's again, the warning I always have about guys over 30 something. And again, I wanted to re-sign Ghana, but they're always a little more susceptible to injury. And so to me, when Moyes talks about those 9 players, and we are rightfully focused on guys who can create scoring chances, who can score goals, but man, that midfield, to name a part of it that could not use reinforcement.
Oh yeah, I mean it's so threadbare, especially if we're looking to play three across the middle, which we probably wouldn't have thought to. I don't know. Yeah, maybe we need at least two, don't we, to cover
Yeah.
those two sort of
But two
time
like
where
kind of difference
hitting
maker
goals.
guys, right? Les, they can't just
Yeah,
be like now. Okay, I'm going to ask again. We've talked about this name comes up for all the 2 + 2 = 4 sort of reasons, but like, are people going to be turning up their nose at Souček if that becomes even a decent 2-year stopgap option? I wouldn't.
no, absolutely. And you know the thing with Garner is as well. There is the potential for injury because he is that bit older.
Yeah.
But also we need to be finding a replacement for him because we can't be going into next summer thinking, oh, we need to give him another year because
Yeah.
he's doing really well. Even
That's
if he
how you
does
get a
really
right
well,
back position like the one we've got now, frankly.
exactly, because that's what happens, and then you end up with a massive hole in the midfield. So yeah, it's one of those, isn't it, where I think that there are definitely players who could fill in, and I don't really think we're in a position to turn our noses up at anyone who's sort of half decent Premier League quality, really, because
Yeah.
there's no numbers in there. You know, Irabunum last season started off relatively well, disappeared.
Got
Looked,
injured. Yeah.
yeah, he might, he might be a great midfielder one day. He might not be. We don't know, but we can't rely on him at this point because he's not done enough. I don't think to.
A decent squad option, I
Yeah,
think.
I think so. Yeah, but
And that's fine.
if there's two players, if there's two positions, and there's only three midfielders, as
Oh
you
yeah.
say, you're one injury away from a bit of a disaster there. And with Harrison Armstrong, he's looked really good
Hmm.
pre-season, but a lot of young players can do that. They can come in pre-season, have a really good pre-season, then when
Yeah.
it gets to the Premier League, I think he will be. I think he'll be a top-class midfielder, but
Mhm.
he is only 18, and it's that central midfield. It's a tough position to play.
Yeah. Was it
So
necessity is the mother of invention? Is that what they say? I mean, I wonder. So here's my question about Harrison Armstrong, which again, this always pushes into, and this is where I need you, Les, to sort of check me with your, traditional English view of football development. But I, I look so I see. It feels like every time Harrison Armstrong plays for Everton, I notice him
yeah,
in a overwhelmingly positive fashion. Okay. He went out on loan last season and by all accounts did quite well,
yeah,
right?
yeah, he did really well.
How old is Harrison Armstrong now?
He's,
21?
he's 18.
18? God.
18. I think
He's
he's I
only
think he's
18.
19 later this
He
year.
does not play like an 18-year-old.
No.
I just want to throw that out there. Now, look, is there anything ideal about an 18-year-old playing too big of a role for you? No. And yeah, I think ideally it's probably another season on loan somewhere. But if we don't bring in quality reinforcements, would you rather are you sure you'd rather see Irabunum out there or Garner over him? Or like I
Oh,
I just I part of me just wonders, at what point do you say we have this young guy who is dynamic, who's had a good loan spell, who just seems to look good and not out of place every time he plays for us? Like, at what point do you kind of say to yourself, am I overly focusing on the age part, to and maybe I should just believe my eyes and just give this kid a chance to play, like, because I don't know, like, for instance, if it's this disaster if he starts the season with us, Les, and has some opportunities and then goes out on loan in January. If we bring some, like, I guess I think there's always this idea that, well, you can't, if you play a young player too early, it's just like a nuke is going to go off in his brain and he's going to lose all his confidence and he'll never be able to walk again. We create these nightmarish scenarios, but I also am just kind of like, is it really the worst outcome if he plays a little bit in the Premier League and he's fine, or even if he struggles a little bit, he's learning something and getting
yeah.
valuable. I don't know. 18 is still probably is early, and I will admit to you, it is not ideal for him to be part of the first team squad going into the season, because ideally you would have brought in replacements. But I do think in the next year or so, if he continues to go out on loan and be productive, he continues to look good whenever he plays, minutes for us. I just like, let's just see him ourselves. Like, let's start getting the benefit out of him a little bit ourselves. But anyway, that's a weird aside on Harrison Armstrong. I just really like him. Like,
Yeah,
he's like a player. He just looks like a player in a way that you notice, in a way that he seems like a smooth operator on the ball. I think he's the kind of guy whose brain is really at a very high level for this game. He always seems to make the right pass. And to me, the way in which guys like that develop and get better is by playing. So he needs to play. But man, I just think the future's that kid's got something. I don't know what
definitely.
it is, but he's got something.
That's where the club needs to put his development over anything, because it would be great for him to get minutes at Everton, but if he's coming into a struggling Everton side and he's taken on the responsibility of a central midfield role, that can be, I don't want to catastrophize, but that can be disastrous for a player, because it's so much pressure, and if the side's struggling, he's not learning much out of that, because no one's enjoying any of it. So I don't know. The club really do need to put his development ahead of the team's own needs, because we should be in a position where we can bring in a more experienced player until he is 100% ready for that. But,
yeah. All right, Les. Anything else on Everton before we talk about this week in Chicago? I just wanted to
nothing else from me. Let's launch into that one, man.
Okay. Well, I'm very excited. You guys have probably heard by now, but I think it's the first time I've gotten to probably talk about it in any greater length. But the Everton, the magical, mystical Everton preseason tour of America, which has gotten off to a flying start, is, because result aside, from all indications, the events in New York look super fun. I think the fans, the turnout yesterday, by all accounts, is great. I expect it to be even better in Chicago, frankly. And I've been excited about this for a while. So for those of you who have not heard, there is going to be a gathering of 4 of our Blue Room brethren in Chicago for this upcoming week of the Everton USA tour. And it'll be myself. It'll be KickAbout 2.0, OG, Mark Mosey.
Oh yeah.
And then of course it will be the A-listers, the stars, the guys who I wonder if Matt and Patty, do you think Matt and Patty have like a tour rider like Oasis when they go to a show where when they get to the venue, it's got to be very specific type of like sparkling water, like let's be real. Patty's pretty bougie, right? So I feel like he's going to have his very specific type of water, organic this, organic that. I'm hoping to get like a bag of peanuts and a light beer afforded to me when we do this event over there.
Yeah, I think Paddy's actually getting. I think Paddy's getting sparkling water shipped in from Lark Lane. So I think that's on his rider. And I know for a fact that Matt and Paddy have got the penthouse suites. Moses in a motel down the road. So
nice. Nice. Well, luckily, I think that I'm going to get a cot to sleep on at some point on this trip. But, it's Chicago. The weather's nice out. If I have to sleep in Grant Park, it won't be the end of the world. But no, all joking aside, really quickly. So we're kind of doing a little bit of everything. First and foremost, Chicago, for any of you who are listening, who are from Chicago adjacent, whatever. One, I just want to give a big shout out to the Chicago Evertonians, who are an incredible local Everton support group, who have done a lot to help facilitate, this visit. The North American Toffees, of course. But Chicago is one of my. I think I've said it. I may have even said it on this pod at some point. Chicago, to me, is the greatest city in the world in the summertime. It is whatever you think is the best theoretical part of America, that to me, it's Chicago in the summertime. It's fantastic. The weather looks like it's going to be, for the most part, fantastic. Be a nice cool break for me compared to the, in Fahrenheit, the high 90s that I'm dealing with now, or the 40s in Celsius that I'm dealing with here in Oklahoma City now. But no, we're very excited about it. So KickAbout. Everton Byline, we will be doing an event at AJ Hudson's public house in Chicago. That is where the Chicago Evertonians do their match day watching. So there's going to be a big event that starts, I think, at like 10 a.m. there. Our event, we're going to be doing I think it was called a live recording, but I don't even know if we're recording necessarily, but we are going to be doing just kind of a get up there and shoot the S with all of our friends, and we're going to we're going to do a little Q&A. We want to meet as many of you as possible. I hope you guys come out. It's at AJ Hudson's Public House. Our part of the program starts at 1 o'clock. I think it goes till about 3, and then there will be transportation from there to the match that starts at 5:30 at historic Soldier Field. That's the other cool part of this, Les, is that I've never been to Soldier Field for anything before. It's where the Chicago Bears play. It should be great for the game. Really looking forward to that against West Ham. Tuesday night when we get there, yes, we are going on the big Everton dinner cruise, the booze cruise, Les. I'm very excited about this.
Yeah.
Poor Leighton Baines does not know it's coming because I'm going to whip him to death with my adoration. And I won't ask for, I probably won't, I'm not going to ask for an autograph or a photo or anything. I just want to, I've just always wanted to meet Leighton Baines, shake his hand and say, Leighton, thank you for being awesome. Thank you for bringing me so much Everton joy. And let's be real, I won't say it, but in a lot of years where there wasn't a lot of joy to find, Leighton Baines is easily one of my, 2 or 3 favorite players I've ever watched for Everton. I'm very excited to meet him, but there will be, I'd love it if Moyes snuck onto that boat too. I'd really love to meet him. I'd love to have a scotch with the Scotsman, but either way, it's going to be a fantastic event. And then I plan on showing these boys, Les, as much of Chicago as I can. We're going to try to eat and drink at as many cool places as we can. By the way, if I think these boys have watched The Bear too much because they want these Chicago, these beef sandwiches. So if you guys got recommendations for good food, drink, whatever, let us know. And Les, to top it off, on Friday, we are going to Wrigley Field for the Cubs game versus the Orioles. I'm very excited. I've been to Wrigley before. It's it is the closest thing to Goodison here in the United States.
Right. Okay.
I mean, it is an old stadium with tons of history. It's idyllic. It's a great place to watch a game. Going for a day game. That's the ultimate Wrigley experience, a day game in Chicago. And Patty, Mark, and Matt, they've never been to Chicago before. I'm so excited they get to see it. But anyway, that's my little pitch there. Hope as many of you guys can come out as possible. Please come up to us and say hello. If you go talk to Patty really loves it if you ask him about transfers. He would love to talk to you about nothing but transfers. So please talk to him about that at any time. And Matt does, he will pretend like he doesn't like it, but if you tell him he looks like Dave Grohl, he secretly loves it. You should do that as much as possible. And of course, and my brother is joining us on this trip as well. My brother is flying in from Pittsburgh. Very excited about seeing the taller, better looking Vera brother coming out for the trip. So should be a fantastic time, guys. Looking forward to seeing all of you. Les, have you been to Chicago before? I can't remember if you've ever been there.
I have. I've been there for, I think, 2 nights.
Oh, yeah.
As part of a different trip. Yeah, I just went to some bars. Didn't do any sort of touristy stuff. Just sort of walked around the city, did a few bars. It's an incredible place.
Yeah, was it cold when you were there, or was it during?
No, it was really hot. Summer, so it's nice.
Yeah. I'm sitting here talking about all this great weather, and they're going to be thinking it's a heat wave probably, but it's I think other than Tuesday, the highs are in kind of the mid to upper 70s Fahrenheit, which
that's nice.
That's nice. I don't know what that is in Celsius, but I promise you that's nice. You're on Lake Michigan, you get the breeze coming off. It should be good,
it's going to be a nice 20. About 22, I think. That's lovely. That's perfect. Yeah.
Sounds great. Shorts. It'll be good shorts weather.
Full on shorts weather.
Though, Les, here's where I want your advice, and this is where I want to finish. So, if I'm being real, the part of packing that sometimes consumes too much of my brain, and this is for any of you who suffer from anxiety, and I'm one of those people who has to kind of manage it, right? It'll be like a little thing that gets in your head that grows bigger and bigger. And you just where did this come from? Why am I worried about this? If you deal with anxiety, you understand this. My anxiety at times is packing the right clothes for the occasions. Now, most of this, let's be real, it's all very sportsy. Baseball, live football, bars, whatever. I mean, that's easy. I just pack a lot of shorts and shirts and hats for my bald head to make sure I don't get sunburned. The normal stuff. But Les, I'm very nervous about this dinner cruise. I'm very nervous because, look, one, a dinner cruise sounds, sponsored by Christopher. What is the watch company?
Christopher Ward, yeah, the fancy watchmaker.
It all sounds very classy. You pay a not unsubstantial amount of money to get on this thing, and I'm going to be meeting Leighton Baines, and I might even run into Seamus Coleman, Les. I don't know who else may be coming on. I can't remember who else, and then of course Everton legends that are going to be part of that cruise as well. I can't remember everyone who's going to be on there, but plenty of guys who are, a big deal. I'm very nervous, Les, about not wearing the right thing. I don't want to. I'm not going to wear a hat. I'm not going to wear a ball cap and shorts and a t-shirt. I want to wear something that looks good, but at the same time, I don't want to overdo it. Like, you don't want to be the guy who shows up at wearing a tuxedo to to a party where no one's wearing a tie. Like I just need to figure out what is Booze Cruise attire that tells these Everton legends that I am probably going to meet that I'm cool. I'm not a threat. I'm nice, but I'm also classy. What would you recommend, Les? You are one of the most fashionable people I know. So what would you recommend?
I think you can't go wrong with a chino.
Okay.
In this situation, it's summer, it's evening, it straddles day and night. Really, a pair of chinos.
Got a couple nice pairs of chinos. I've got the normal kind of khaki color. I've got a nice light gray that's good for the summer.
I think that's where to go.
Button-down shirt or a polo? What do you think?
Just with a t-shirt, I think.
Ooh, a t-shirt. Ooh, now I've got a few nicer t-shirts, maybe, but
if you're not comfortable with that, go with a shirt.
Well, I do. So here's compromise. What about a button-down short-sleeved shirt that's collared?
Yes.
Would that work?
That would go. Yeah, I think so. I think you nailed it there. Because maybe a light jacket in case it cools down over.
Well, I think it's going to be warm enough. That's going to be the warmest day there, but it's evening. Okay. I think that's a good call out though, because you never know. Once you get out on the water, you think it won't be breezy and cool, and then it ends up being breezy and cool. And again, it's Lake Michigan, and I think we're just kind of on the coast, along the coastline to see. I think the idea of the dinner cruise is that you see kind of the Chicago skyline and all that cool stuff, which should be spectacular in the evening time, by the way. But I think that I'm worried about I didn't want to bring. I think we're close enough, and it's Lake Michigan. I don't think it's going to be cold. I'm more worried, frankly, about motion sickness. I was in Scotland a couple of years ago. I went to Oban, and I got on one of those little cruises around, the coast or whatever.
Yeah, it gets choppy, doesn't it?
It was this, and I the only reason I didn't puke is because I hadn't had anything to eat that morning. But I was turning green.
Nothing prepares you for that, does it? And for a good hour, when you're back on land, you're still gone.
My wife takes these, she's got these Dramamine motion sickness patches that she wears when she goes on plane trips, but even certain road trips, she's very sensitive to it. And I may have to borrow that because I have a nightmare. I just Les, what if I wear the wrong thing? What if I hurl on Leighton Baines? What if, God forbid, the special guest that ends up popping into that trip is Michael Keane, and then that gets awkward when he comes up to me and says, "I've seen all the things you've said about me over the years on Twitter, you son of a bitch."
Do you know what?
And I have to pretend that was my brother and it wasn't me. There's all kinds of and then I puke on him, and then he throws me over. See, this is how anxiety works, Les. Is I'm already painting these scenarios that are freaking me out a little bit. I won't lie.
I think it'd be fine. I think maybe maybe take some of Mrs. V's patches.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the one. But yeah, pair of chinos, man, and a short sleeve shirt.
Okay.
You'll nail it.
Keep it breezy. Keep it breezy.
Yeah, right. Definitely. Right. That's the one.
Well, all joking aside, and that was at least 30% joking. I would tell you that I'm very excited about this Everton-centric week coming up. I think it's going to be spectacular, regardless of the result. As I say every time I come over to see you guys.
Yeah.
The trip itself, I try to set it up so that it'll be great regardless of the result. I do think that this is one of those cases where, regardless of what happens outside of anything horrific, this should be a great week for everyone involved. So excited to meet as many of you as we can. And really excited just about being in one of the greatest cities, and not only in America but in the world. So looking forward to that. Man, Les, time flew. We did hardcore Everton talk. For those of you who are fans of Rob and Les's Greatest Generation Record Corner, that will be back next time. We had a lot to cover this week, and I wanted to give our selections, and I can preview it, Les. I can just say we're going to be talking Third Eye Blind. We're going to be talking about Air next time we get together. Very excited about that, because I think we both really enjoyed those listens and really want to talk about those albums. But guys, this has been fantastic. Les, before we go, tell everyone what's coming up over the next few days here on the Blue Room. I know we've got Blue Monday and Byline, but I think Mailbag as well.
Yeah, so aside from whatever Chicago shenanigans we get from you guys, it will be the usual stuff. We will have Blue Monday on Monday. I think the weekly will be on Wednesday. Mailbag's back on Fridays, and we will have post-match for West Ham. I don't know if we'll be doing that, but we'll have a post-match.
I think we will. I think we might be doing it from there. Yeah,
that would make sense. Yeah, and then when's United? Is that next Sunday?
Is what next Sunday?
United. I think that's next Sunday, isn't it? Man United.
I believe so. Yeah, the game in Atlanta. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so then we'll have post match for that, and then it's back to Blue Monday again. The cycle goes on. So all the usual.
This season is coming fast, guys. Like I think that's kind of undergirding our whole discussion about transfers is the off season, but the time between the end of the Premier League season and the start of the new one is just so short. It's amazing how quickly this time is flying by. But no, should be a fantastic week in Chicago. Looking forward to it, and hopefully we will have plenty of good things to talk about this week, and hopefully that includes maybe some new players coming in as well, who may or may not join us in America. You never know. But for Les Roberts, I'm Rob Vera. Guys, this has been fantastic. We will see you again next time for more Kickabout. Take care, and we'll see you in Chicago.